Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Nishnupad Paramhansa Pariprajapacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundu Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. No, we need them. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotee. Gaur Premanande.
Maharaj, and welcome everyone to Thursday night's Caitanya Charitamrta reading with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, who is en route to the airport. It is March the 30th, 2023, and a day later in India. Thank you very much for being with us, Maharaj. As always, we're eager to hear everyone's comments and questions, so please use the raise hand feature or simply unmute yourself and speak when Maharaj asks your questions or comments. And if you can also post comments or questions in the chat box, just please do not post any of those messages while Maharaj is reading something from there because it makes it difficult for him to read. At the end of the class, I will post some helpful links that you can share with your friends so they can attend as well. And we're very glad that you could join us again, Maharaj, and be here for us and lead us through Caitanya Charitamrta. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Tulsi Priya, and thank you to all. By the nature of Kindle, I'm not quite sure what verse this is. I think you have the verse, and we're in a long report. And the place I have is when covered by the cloud of material energy.
Okay, yeah, I had it, and then my database went into a different place, so I'm currently pulling that up right now. That is Adi. Does my husband know off the top of his head?
No.
Okay, give me one more. I'm very
I'll
sorry,
get
Mara.
started, and by the time we're going, you'll have found it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timidam Dasya Jnanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Caitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Swayam Rupa Kadamayanam Bhakti Shupadanam Vandeham Shri Guru Shupadanam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Rupam Sagrajat Sahagana Vidanatan Vitam Stam Saji Sadvaitam Savatutam Pradijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vichakan Vitamscha He Krishna Purana Sindho Deen Manto Pradakate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Volongi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabh Banu Sate Devi Pranamami Odi Priya Vansha Golpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhopye Vacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasani Gaura Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama. If there are any sound issues, you can let me know.
Maharaj,
When covered, yes.
okay. Just making sure we were on the same paragraph. Panchatattva Prabhu informs that it's the fourth paragraph.
Okay. And what the verse number?
I'm sorry, 66.
Okay. When covered by the cloud of material energy, the living entity, who's also a spiritual energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forgets about the activities of the spiritual energy and considers all that happens in the material world, material manifestation, to be wonderful. So that's the Avaranatmaka Shakti of Maya, the covering potency. It covers the living entity so that he forgets the activities of the spiritual energy and thinks that what's happening here is wonderful. But a person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness and who's therefore already situated in spiritual energy can understand that the material energy has no ended powers. Whatever actions are going on are due to the help of the spiritual energy. So this is a fundamental point Kaviraj as Goswami is making, that the material energy is inert. It doesn't do anything. It can't make anything happen unless it has the touch of spiritual consciousness behind. Finally, behind total material energy is the supreme consciousness. Otherwise, any manifestation of material energy, I'm driving in a car, so the car is not going to do anything until the touch of consciousness is there in the form of the driver. So material energy has no independent powers. It depends on the spiritual energy. The material energy, which is a perverted form of the spiritual energy, presents everything pervertedly, thus causing misconceptions and duality. Duality means especially to think that there's some existence other than that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or apart from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material scientists and philosophers conditioned by the spell of material nature, suppose that material energy acts automatically, and therefore they are frustrated, like an illusioned person who tries to get milk from the nipple-like bunches of skin on the neck of a goat. As there's no possibility of getting milk from these bunches of skin, there's similarly no possibility that anyone will be successful in understanding the original cause of creation by putting forward theories produced by the material energy. Such an attempt is a manifestation of ignorance. So it's nice here that the spiritual energy is the cause of creation, and our mind, our intelligence, coming up with so many theories is covered or infected or perverted by the material energy. And with such a crippled intelligence, one is not going to be able to understand the ultimate cause of creation. And we see that there are so many cosmological theories that finally come down to the nipples on the goat's neck as being a source of milk. Material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Maya, or illusion, because in two capacities, by supplying the material elements and by causing the material manifestation, it makes the conditioned soul unable to understand the real truth of creation. Though there are, of course, two different ways to look at twofold aspects of material energy. One we just mentioned, covering potency and throwing potency. One throws us into the material illusion, and the other keeps us covered so that we think this is the whole story. But another way to categorize material energy into two divisions, that's mentioned here, is to see Pradhan and the Pradhan providing the ingredients of material nature, and then Prakriti activated those ingredients by the potency of the Lord, and therefore causing material. Those who are of limited vision see nature as the cause of everything. They see the active nature, and they see the ingredients also, but they don't see what's activating nature. However, when a living entity is liberated from the conditioned life of matter, he can understand the two different activities of material nature, namely covering and bewildering. The origin of creation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:10. The cosmic manifestation is working under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who invests the material energy with three material qualities: Mayadya, Prakriti, Suyate, etc. Etunani, Jagat Vipaliparate. The Supreme Lord is overseeing or directing the material in terms of three material qualities. Agitated by these three qualities, the elements supplied by the material energy produce varieties of things, just as an artist produces varieties of pictures by mixing the three colors, red, yellow, and blue. Yellow represents the quality of goodness, red represents passion, and blue represents ignorance. Therefore, colorful material creation is but an interaction of these three qualities, represented in 81 varieties of mixtures. 3 times 3 equaling 9, 9 times 9, thus equaling 81. If anyone knows why it stops there, we always hear, not always, but we run into this several times, 81 different varieties. I don't know why the multiplication stops at 80, or perhaps it doesn't. In any case, if anyone knows more about that, feel free to chime in. Diluted, but in any case, the material nature is colorful because you have this palette of 3 colors forming so many varieties of colors. Those who've worked in printing or design, publication design, know about that. Pantone colors and so on, which are simply combinations of 3 colors plus black. Diluted by material energy, the conditioned soul, enamored by these 81 varieties of manifestations, wants to lord it over material energy, just as a moth wants to enjoy the fire. And of course, Prabhupada doesn't take that further, but a moth who wants to enjoy the fire winds up dead. This illusion is the net result of the conditioned soul's forgetfulness of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. When conditioned, the soul is impelled by material energy to engage in sense gratification, whereas one enlightened by the spiritual energy engages himself in the service of the Supreme Lord in his eternal relationship. Krishna is the original cause of the spiritual world, and he is the covered cause of the material manifestation. Covered means covered from our view. He's also the original cause of the marginal entities. He's both the leader, container of the living entities, potency. Because they can act under the protection of the spiritual energy or under the cover of the material energy. With the help of the spiritual energy, we can understand that independence is visible in Krishna, who by his inconceivable energy is able to act in any way he likes. So there are 2 kinds of living entities, or 2 kinds of entity, dependent or contingent, and independent. The personality of Godhead is Swarat, completely independent in his existence and his activities. And everyone else is dependent. Our existence is contingent on that of the Lord. Our activities are contingent upon various conditions arranged by the Lord. One living entity is dependent on another living entity, dependent on a third living entity. And so it goes. There's always this chain of dependent. But dependent implies finally that there's an independent living entity. And that's Krishna. One should never mistakenly, no. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the absolute whole, and the living entities are parts of the absolute whole. This relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities is eternal. One should never mistakenly that the spiritual whole could be divided into small parts by the small material energy. Now we're parts of the truth, but later will become the whole truth, or will realize that all along we've been the whole truth. The Bhagavad Gita does not support this Mayavad theory. Rather, it clearly states that the living entities are eternally small fragments of the supreme spiritual whole. Mami Vamsa Sanat. As a part can never be equal with the whole, so a living entity as a minute fragment of the spiritual whole cannot be equal at any time between the whole, the absolute personality of God. Although the Supreme Lord and the living entities are quantitatively related as the whole and the parts are nevertheless qualitatively one with the whole. Thus, the living entities, although always qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, are in a relative position. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, controller of everything, and the living entities are always controlled, either by the spiritual energy or by the material energy. Therefore, a living entity can never become the controller of material or spiritual energies. The natural position of the living being is always as a subordinate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one agrees to act in such a position, he attains perfection in life. But if one rebels against this principle, he's in the conditioned state. Let me just roll it. All right, any questions or comments so far? Okay. So again, we're finding that Nityananda Prabhu, or Lord Balaram, is the source of the entire material creation, and we're all dependent on him. Aganya Ananta Yajata Andas Sanivesh Tattarupe Purusha Kore Kore Shabate Prakash. The Purusha enters each and every one of the countless universes. He manifests himself in as many separate forms as there are universes. Purusha nasate jabe bahirai shvas nishvas shohite hoy brahmanda prakash. When the Purusha exhales, the universes are manifested with each outward breath. Punarapi swasjabe praveshe antore swasha shoho brahmanda paishe Purusha shodire. Thereafter, when he inhales, all the universes again enter his body. Purport. In his form as Kshirodakshay Vishnu, the Lord impregnates material nature by his glance. The transcendental molecules of that glance are particles of spirit, or spiritual atoms, which appear in different species of life according to the seeds of their individual karma from the previous cosmic manifestation. And the Lord himself, by his partial representation, creates a body of innumerable universes, and again enters each of those universes as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. His coming in contact with Maya is explained by a comparison between air and the sky. The sky enters everything material, yet is far away from us. Yata kasha stito nityam vayu sarvatrago maha ta sarvani bhutani sarvani chupata. The sky is, or space, akash, contains or envelops or includes the wind or the air, vayu. But the sky is not affected. We see that in our practical dealings or practical experience, that the sky as we know it, the big blue sky, may sometimes have wind within it, may sometimes have clouds, hurricanes, and tornadoes even, but still the sky is so much greater than these small local weather conditions. All those conditions are happening within a little corner of the sky. Yeah. So everything's happening within the energy of Krishna, and yet Krishna is beyond everything. And the living entities appear in different forms and with different activities on account of their previous karma, previous activities and results from the previous cosmic manifestation. So this has been going on since time immemorial, and yet that time, which to us seems so vast, it is in, what should we say, the vast time in which the cosmos exists is just a breath of Mahavishnu. Okay. Any comments or questions so far? Kavakera Randre Yena Trasarenu Chole Purushera Loma Kupe Pramhandera Jale. Just as atomic particles of dust pass through the openings of a window, so the networks of universes pass through the pores of the skin of the earlier. Well, earlier, I think. Let me just reach in my pocket and get something from the throat. Okay. So earlier we read about time and the atom and these Trasarenus, which are three atoms together, rather six atoms together. I think I saw a comment there pass by. I could hear what
Yes,
that
Maharaj.
comes. Could you read that out for me?
Sure. Panchatattva Prabhu, can you read it or would you like me to?
Sure, I'll read it. I wrote that it is mind-bending to think that he whose plenary portion of a portion breathes out innumerable universes, each teeming with living entities, can have an intimate, loving relationship with each of those same tiny jivas who approach him in love and devotion.
Yes. The the scale of things. Anoraniya Bhato Mahiya. It's said about the absolute personality of Godhead that he's greater than the greatest and smaller than the smallest. So on the greater than the greatest platform, which we're reading about now, all these cosmic activities go on. And yet the Lord can tend to the smallest of the small, the living entities. And a favorite passage of mine from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the inconceivability of the Lord consists not of his being greater than the greatest, which we can conceive of, or smaller than the smallest, which we could also conceive of, but of his being both at the same time, and yet maintaining all the while his charming medium-sized form. This is Krishna. When we hear about Krishna dancing with the gopis or lying on the lap of Yashoda Mai, this is who we're talking about. Okay, anything else? Yasyaika nishvasita kalamata valamya jivanti loma villaja jagadangadatta vishnur mahan saiha yasya kalavishesho govindamadi pusham tamahang bhajami. The Brahmas and other lords of the mundane world appear from the pores of Mahavishnu and remain alive for the duration of his one exhalation. I adore the primeval Lord, Govinda, of whom Mahavishnu is a portion of a plenary portion. Purport. This description of the Lord's creative energy is from the Brahma Samhita 548, which Lord Brahma compiled after his personal realization. When Mahavishnu exhales, the spiritual seeds of the universes emanate from him in the form of molecular particles, like those that are visible 3 times the size of an atom when sunlight is diffused through a small hole. In these days of atomic research, it will be a worthwhile engagement for atomic scientists to learn from this statement how the entire creation develops from the spiritual atoms emanating from the body of the Lord. I don't know, I suspect that if one applied for a research grant along these lines, one's application might fail. But this is where research finally has to go. It's not enough just to confine ourselves to the workings of the material energy. A thoughtful person finally has to ask how the material, under what power, by what by what agency material nature is working. This might not be discoverable through empiric investigation, but an intelligent person, having come so far in his investigation, finally has to think, well, there must be a further source. Lord Brahma observed the lotus on which he was sitting. He observed the water from which the lotus was growing. And he thought there must be some further cause of this. And he tried to discover that cause through research. And when he failed to do so, he received guidance that he should perform tapasya, or austerity. And by that austerity, he would make further progress and become eligible for enlightenment, or, yes, spiritual guidance, spiritual enlightenment that would enable him to understand the cause of everything. It's not achievable just by material efforts. One needs, finally, the help of that ultimate spiritual entity, the personality of Godhead. Kvaham tamo mahadaham kacharagni barbhu samveshtitanda katat sapta vitastikaya vedrigvita vikanitanda paranucharja ata vasyachate mahitvam. Where hand?
Breaking up a little and freezing right now, Maharaj.
We're breaking up again. This
No,
better.
I think it must be me. Sorry.
Okay. Where am I? Where am I? A small creature of 7 spans the measure of my own hand. I'm enclosed in the universe, composed of material nature, the total material energy, false ego, ether, air, water, and earth. And what is your glory? Unlimited universes pass through the pores of your body, just like particles of dust passing through the opening of a window. Purport. When Lord Brahma, after having stolen all Krishna's calves and cowherd boys, returned and saw that the calves and boys were still roaming with Krishna, he offered this prayer, Bhagavatam 10:14-11, in his defeat. A conditioned soul, even one so great as Brahma, who manages the affairs of the entire universe, cannot compare to the personality of Godhead, for he can produce numberless universes simply by the spiritual rays emanating from the pores of his body. Material scientists should take lessons from the utterances of Sri Brahma regarding our insignificance in comparison to God. In these prayers of Brahma, there's much to learn for those who are falsely puffed up by the accumulation of power. Yeah, we see a hand here.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. I was just thinking how in the Bible, it's a proverb, even, for people who don't read the Bible, that thou art dust and unto dust thou shalt return, referring to a human being's life or body. And then taking it further, we see, in the world, whole cities that were covered by millions of tons of dust, as when their civilizations collapse. And then the Bhagavatam is telling us that not just this universe, but all universes are like dust, just insignificant particles coming from the body of Mahavishnu. It really takes it to another level, the idea of our insignificance in the material world.
Yes, thank you. Again, the same thought expressed by Panchatattva is there, and the same point Prabhupada reiterates in the purport, that the scale here from infinite to infinitesimal is really impressive. A child, Prabhupada points out, looks up at night, or a thoughtful person looks up at night and sees the stars and wonders about the vastness of the cosmic manifestation. And if that person is pious, if that person has a background of spiritual credit, then that person can intuit or perceive, or at least guess at, the greatness of the power that lies behind all these things. And on the other hand, a person lacking in spiritual credit wants to get to the bottom of it all by research, or get to the bottom of some of it, pulls a chunk of it, he specializes, and then he wants to understand whatever it is that he's investigating. And he may go to great lengths, he may reach great heights and make breakthroughs, new discoveries, new formulations, theoretical formulations, and get deeper and deeper into an understanding of how material nature works. But he can't go beyond it because he's captivated. What's the word? Fascinated by material nature. And he forgets, again, because of lack of spiritual credit, because of stubborn materialist, he forgets the large question behind it. So a scientist of a higher order doesn't that question. He doesn't become falsely puffed up by his intellect or by the cumulative achievements of science. You see, it's a little band of mortals trying to get to the bottom of things before they die. And he sees the importance of the human form of life in terms of going beyond the limits of material nature. Amsherangshaye Kala Tarnam Govinder Pratimurti Sri Balaram. A part of a whole is called a Kala. Sri Balaram is the counter form of Lord Govinda. Ete Chamsa Kala Pumsa Krishna's tu Bhagavan. In the first canto, we find that there's plenary portions of the Lord and plenary portions of plenary portions. So part of a part is called a Kala. And Lord Balaram is the counter form of Lord Govinda. Tar Ek Swarup Shri Mahashankar Shan Tar Ansha Purusha Oye Kalase Gana. Balaram's own expansion is called Mahasankarshan, and his fragment, the Purusha, is counted as a kala, or a part of a plenary portion. Yahake ta kala kohi tiho Mahavishnu Mahapurusha Patari Eva Sarvajish. I say that this kala is Mahavishnu. He's the Mahapurusha, who's the source of the other Purushas and who is all pervading. Garbhodha Shiroda Shai Dohe Purush Nam She Dvi Jar Angsha Vishnu Vishwadham. Garbhodakshay and Kshirodakshay are both called Purushas. They are plenary portions of Caritamrta Vishnu, the first Purusha, who is the abode of all the universes. And I see there's a comment or a question. But I don't see what it is. Would someone like to help me out?
Tulsi Priya, you're muted.
Sorry. Ananta Shesha Prabhu asked if you can explain the term plenary in layman's terms, and I also have a question.
Yeah, plenary means having full power. I could look it up. I will look it up. It means having full power. Complete, full, entire, absolute. And the usual way we hear it these days is fully attended. So you get a plenary session of Congress. Means not just a committee or a group that can't decide anything, but a full session in which everyone's there and all the top level decisions can be made. So plenary session, as distinct from a committee meeting or something small. So the plenary portions of the Lord have the same power as the Lord, even though they appear as portions. What is that? Departureva hijashantaramabhupecha dipayate vivritahetu samana dharma yastadrageva hicha vishnu teha vipati govindamati purusham tamaham bhajan. As one candle expands as many, Govinda, the personality of Godhead, expands himself in so many different forms, which are all identical, even though they're distinguished as portions and the original personality of Godhead. As mentioned in an earlier verse, Balaram is a counter form of the personality of Godhead. I think I saw Prati something. Let's see. Give me a moment. Govindara Pratimurti Sri Balaram. Prati means counter. Prati, the Prati, Prati means like responding, or Prati means, how is it given here? Yeah, Pratimurti. The the deities in the temple, the small Utsav deities, are called Pratibhumurtis, if I'm not wrong. They're as good as the big ones, but they're appearing in another form for another purpose. So Pratimurti, Pratimurti, yes, counter form. That means he's Krishna, but he's Krishna appearing in a slightly different form for a different purpose. I hope that clears it up. Okay, now let me get back to my place. Now, rather than launch into the Anantashesha says that in his native language, prati means dependent. The comment disappeared from my view, but I think what I saw was dependent. Prati. Dependent or dependent? Just think. This also comes up elsewhere. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavatapi. The Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalapi. The Lakshmis and Gopis are all Pratibhavatapi. They're reflected manifestations of the internal potency. Okay, given the time and given the circumstances, I'll stop here rather than launch into the purport. And I'll sign off a little early because I'm in travel mode, and carry on. I trust you'll carry on with Kirtan, and I'll join you tomorrow, Krishna willing. Thank you all very much. Hare.
Thank you very much. Harimo.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Can we carry on?
Yes, does that mean you're going to lead Kirtan, Prabhu?
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Will you please recite?
Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Privrajacharya Stotra Satta Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Privrajacharya Stotra Satta Shishimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath, Shyamakund Radhakund Girgovardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Gangamayi Ki Jai, Jamunamayi Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Shrimati Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Gaura Premanande.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Please share the class links in the chat box with your friends, and I hope we can all see you again tomorrow on Friday for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj. Thank you also Panchatattva Prabhu for leading Kirtan. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, who gives a Bhagavatam class from a car on his way to an airport. Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Transcendental multitasking.
Every moment, not a moment wasted in service of Krishna.
As someone noted in the Ananta Shesha Prabhu noted in the chat box, we wish him a safe trip.
Jai.
There you go.
Jai Ananta Shesha Prabhu.
And not just any class,
Yeah, right.
But like, wow.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji.